Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are going to be checking out this video right here about the Colosseum. And I think they spelled it wrong, but it says, so why isn't Colosseum half of it? But it's spelled out, why isn't Closeum half of it? So maybe that's how they spell it or pronounce it in Italy. I don't know exactly. But anyways, the channel is Strange Facts. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff, hit like and subscribe. And you can find a link to um, the original video in the description section down below. And we're going to go ahead and jump into it and see what this is all about. We're going to do some learning today.
The Colosseum, or as the Italian call it, the Colosso, is not just an ancient structure. It's a symbol representing that Roman Empire throughout history. While resembling a stadium, it functioned quite differently. Not for modern sports, but for brutal events, primarily gladiator contests and executions.
Yeah, the whole gladiator thing is really interesting. I mean, it sucks. It would have sucked to be a gladiator for sure, because it's like a life or death kind of situation. But very cool part of, maybe not cool in the sense that there were a lot of people dying, but like very interesting part of history.
But around 2,000 years ago, during a time when human life held little value, this arena wasn't reserved for the elite. It hosted various individuals, including gladiators and condemned prisoners.
Yeah, but wouldn't the elite go and watch the gladiator matches, though? Like, surely, I mean, of course, they're not taking part in the matches, but didn't they at least, like, they went and watched it, right? Like, as spectators?
The Colosseum underwent its most extensive reconstruction approximately 300 years after its constructions.
Okay, so even the renovations that took place 300 years after its initial construction, that was still a couple thousand years ago. So that's still even, you know, like really ancient.
Around the 3rd century CE, a period marked by the decline of the Roman Empire. This was a time when Rome faced earthquakes, and more such events led to partial collapse of the structure.
Oh, so an earthquake. But see, honestly, it looks like it was designed that way, right? Unless this, because like, look at this angular wall here, right? So like, it doesn't, and this is shorter. It doesn't look like, it doesn't look like part of it fell down necessarily. It just looks like it was designed that way, because like, that's a top of a finished wall.
In the 5th century CE, amid Rome's economic and religious transformation, the use of Colosseum for deadly spectacles ceased, reflecting the influence of Christianity. Over the centuries, earthquakes continued to take their toll, with significant portions of the Colosseum crumbling, particularly its northern side.
That'd be pretty scary. But yeah, it just looks like it was designed that way. I never really thought that half of it fell down. I mean, of course, there's chunks missing, but that looks like a finished wall. I don't know. And like, look at how it's tiered. And then you got like the angular parts right there. To me, it looks like it was just designed like that.
In the Dark Ages, Romans lost touch with its history, with some considering it a pagan temple, while others spread rumors about demonic presence, complicating efforts to preserve the monument.
Wow, so Romans lost touch with their history. So they're saying that they didn't even know. So in the Dark Ages, they didn't even know what it was for. So that's crazy, because you would think, you know, a lot of history goes down. Sorry, I got some in my eye. A lot of history gets transferred down like verbally, you know, from generation to generation. But somehow nobody talked about the Colosseum long enough for people to forget. That's very interesting. So they probably didn't realize until like they started doing excavations and stuff, right? And finding clues and stuff like that. But I guess I can see right here, you can see some circular portions here where it does look like there was something attached that fell down around this upper rim.
Despite periodic earthquakes causing further damage, the Colosseum endured each turmoil gradually enduring its stability.
And then another thing, like right here.
Colosseum endured each turmoil gradually.
So supposedly that was in the basement. And there was like a wood floor above it, and then in the basement, that's where they would keep like the prisoners, the gladiators, the lions and stuff for like the lion shows. Sorry, my son's back there being super loud. But I just don't see how. I don't see the part that's missing. Well, obviously, if it's missing, I wouldn't see it. But to me, it just looks like it was designed this way, minus, of course, some damage. But I mean, what do I know? I'm not an archaeologist.
Gradually enduring its stability. It wasn't until the 11th century that the significance of Colosseum as a historical site became recognized, and by the year 1000 CE, substantial sections had already succumbed to seismic activity. Geologists recently discovered the reason for the instability. Half of the structure stands on firm ground, while the other half, the one prone to collapse during earthquakes, rests on after soil.
Okay, yeah. Huge mistake by the builders there. You don't want to do that. Obviously, one half being on softer soil and the other half being on firmer ground is definitely, even without earthquakes, buildings settle over time, just by the gravity of things.
However, neither earthquakes nor churches were adversaries of this structure. It was the people of Rome themselves. They didn't hold any value for this ancient building,
Really?
and in fact wished to remove it from the face of the earth.
Well, I'm glad they didn't. Why would they want to remove it? Like, that's history. But I guess back then they didn't care about history, did they?
Despite their desire, their strength fell short, but whenever they needed construction materials, they dragged the Colosseum, taking away stones and bring for their homes.
Okay, yeah, so you can see where there was definitely archways on this side. So that's probably what they were. So they were taking parts of it off of it.
It is noteworthy that the walls of this edifice were entirely covered with travertine, and its ground consisted entirely of marble stones.
I don't know what travertine is.
The stones of the facade and the floor of the building were the first to be dismantled and taken away, depleting sooner than the other materials. In certain periods, this structure housed numerous inhabitants, forming a large makeshift settlement around it.
Okay.
Homeless Romans would find a corner, create a shelter for themselves, and the Colosseum was so insecure that an ordinary person couldn't enter.
So I'm sure they've structurally reinforced it along the ways, or, along just over time, right?
When we observe the Colosseum today, despite the advertises it is faced, it stands somewhat upright, especially its northern side. The reason you recognize this place is that it is the Vatican, the headquarters of the Pope. It is now an independent country, situated 6 kilometers from the Colosseum. The main road of the Vatican used to pass by this structure, meaning that during various eras, the Pope would pass by it daily from the northern side.
So is that in Vatican City then?
They would say, "This is our route, don't let it be ruined." This is why
Okay.
they took good care of its northern side.
They didn't care about the southern side, evidently, huh?
If this wasn't the Pope's road, this monument would surely have been destroyed.
Oh, wow.
However, by maintaining one side, the entire structure has almost remained intact, allowing us to see it today.
What was that tower? That has nothing to do with the Colosseum.
Another reason for its preservation is that ancient cities in our region, like Tezfun, Takhta Jamshid, Susa, or Hekmetana, have remained, but not in this war. The reason is that our cities were easily invaded by enemies from all sides who would commence destruction, looting, and burning.
Okay.
Thus, such monumental structures are absent in our cities. However, Rome had a strategic position, preventing enemies from easily entering. they would only need to fortify the northern side, where the Pope's road passed. If this road didn't exist, this monument would have been demolished. Additionally, ancient cities in Iran such as Tisfum, Takht-Jamshid, Susa, or Hikmatana have remnants, but not in this form.
Right.
The reason is that our cities were easily invaded by enemies from all sides who would commence destruction, looting, and burning. Thus, such monumental structures absent in our cities. However, Rome had a strategic position preventing enemies from easily entering. They would only need to fortify the northern side where the Pope's road passed. If this road didn't exist, this monument would have been demolished.
Why wouldn't they have to fortify all of it, though, if there was invaders?
One more historical note. Once an ancient Roman general, Hannibal Barca, managed to capture the city of Rome, an extraordinary feat. However, he was the sole commander to achieve this, and it happened only once around 218 BCE, which is 200 years before the construction of the Colosseum.
Okay.
The Colosseum.
So I'm going to find out, is the Colosseum how do you spell that? Sorry, guys. In Vatican City. Is it in Vatican City or is it just on the outskirts, right? Okay, so the distance from the Colosseum to St. Peter's Square in the Vatican is 3.6 kilometers. Is the Colosseum in Rome or Vatican City? Now, the one in Rome is obviously the most recognized Colosseum in the world, and is in fact the only one to be capitalized and recognized as the Colosseum. Okay. So it's not in the Vatican City, it's just right next to it, I guess. Very interesting. Well, earthquakes. Earthquakes are the reason, guys. That's what I got the gist of. Earthquakes and just people just taking it for building materials. And if it wasn't for the Pope, the whole thing would be gone. So if you like learning, you like watching my channel, hit like, hit subscribe, and you guys have a super fun, awesome day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye.